Hey everybody, welcome to the garage, or welcome back to the garage if you're a subscriber. And if you're not, you should subscribe. There's lots of good stuff on here. Anyway, today we're in the garage, obviously, and back with the 2015 Dodge Grand Caravan SXT, and I got the passenger's door open. So why is the door open? Well, it's because the window's open. And if you try to close it, you get grindy, crunchy noises. And I wish I had the video recording yesterday when I went to roll this window up, and this loud bang happened, and the window just dropped down into the door. If you've had that happen to you, it actually happened to us on the driver's door like a year and a half ago. Something in the window regulator has failed, and it needs to be replaced. So that is what we are going to do today. Take the whole door trim, door panel off, open up the guts of the door, replace the window regulator, and get the window working again. So the process of doing this is the same on both sides of the vehicle. It's a different part for the different sides, passenger side, driver side, but the basic process is the same to get access and to do the maintenance. So the first thing we have to do is get all the trim pieces off of the door, and we'll start with the small black trim piece that's by the rear view mirror, and that is just using a trim tool or even a screwdriver to pry the trim away and pop it out. There's a couple of snaps in there that hold it in place. Next, you want to use a small screwdriver to pry out the little trim cap in the handle of the door, and then also on the door opening lever that's behind it. And once you get those two little trim pieces off, use a T20 Torx bit to remove the two screws, one on each, behind each piece of trim. Remove those. With those removed, then you use a trim tool to help you pry the bottom of the door away from the metal of the door. It's going to take more strength than you think you ought to put into it, but they will pop out, and then you just work your way up both sides. And then once you get all the trim pieces popped out, you can lift it up off of the weather stripping and have the trim more or less free, except for the electrical wiring that's in there holding things in. So I'm going to leave the door hanging for now, but just want to show you just as I found it, right? So some of the videos I've watched on this just show the door popping off easily, no problem. That obviously was not the case for me. This one broke. This one down here didn't break. You can see it towards the bottom there. There are some pins as well. It'll focus. There's pins there at the bottom that go in. That's actually what's supposed to come out. You can see here, this is what it looks like. They should pull out of the door like that, but at least a couple of these, where'd it go? Focus. Did not. So I'll have to remove these. Pretty sure I have some extras in a little kit of trim pieces that I have, but most of these did not come out cleanly. So we'll have to take care of that before we put this back together. But that's the way it has to go, so be prepared in case that happens to you. To get the trim panel fully free of the door, we've got two electrical harnesses, two electrical connectors to worry about here on the passenger side. If you're on the driver's side, there's actually three connectors you have to worry about. And then there's also the wire that runs from the door handle to the actual door opening mechanism that we'll have to take off. To take off the two electrical connectors, you simply reach in, squeeze the tab, and remove the connector. There's not a locking tab or anything like that. To remove the cable, it's kind of like a bike brake cable, if you're familiar with that. But on that white connector that's attached to the door, you're just going to squeeze the little tabs there and then push the white connector backwards towards what would be the rear of the vehicle. And that allows you to swing the wire out from the attachment point, and then you can just lift up and take the wire out from the door panel. So I did go ahead and pull the three push pins out of the door. I tried to get them out with my trim tool. They just continued to break. They're super brittle. I ended up having to use a pair of pliers just to pull them out. Thankfully, I have some extra trim push pin retainers, and I've got three of them here. These are the ones that came out that were broken. But anyway, I've got some that should work in their place. I'll leave a link in the video description for all the extra little trim Christmas tree type push pins that I use. But these should work. For these type, they just they look like this, and they will just slide into the door like that. And they don't have as long of a tip as the factory ones, but I did a test fit, and these should work to hold it in place in the door. So there's one there, one up there, and one at the top over there that I'll replace. I also went ahead and pushed the controls, the window controls out from the bottom of the armrest of the door. You can pry it up from the top as well. It's just kind of pressure clipped in place. But I took this out because I can then later, I'll be able to test my handiwork without having to reinstall the whole door trim. I should have mentioned this at the beginning, but before you start taking everything apart, just make sure the keys are out of the ignition, the vehicle's turned off. That way you don't have any power running through the connectors you're going to be disconnecting. And there's an airbag sensor in here, so if there's no power, then that's always a good thing. If you want to be super cautious, you can also disconnect the negative battery terminal. You can't go wrong doing that, but I'm not going to be doing that for mine. And the next thing we're going to do is remove the speaker and disconnect the wiring for the speaker, because that's going to become one of our access holes. And we're also going to open up a little rubber access hole on the out the non-hinge side of the door. That'll give us our other access point for releasing the window. And for removing the speaker, you're going to use a T25 Torx tip. Remove the 4 screws and then just disconnect the electrical connector. So before we go any further, it's nice to look inside and see, yep, the glass is intact, so it fell to the bottom, it didn't break, so that's good. That would be a whole nother nightmare. And hey, look at that. That's not supposed to be hanging there, that wire. And that pretty much tells us exactly what happened. So I bet you we find that the cable snapped, and from what I understand, that's maybe kind of a common occurrence, unfortunately. This van's only 8 years old, 127,000 miles, so it's not like this is exceedingly old, but yeah, it looks like the cable's broke. Replacing the regulator is what we need to do. So I've got some strips of blue painter's tape at the ready, and what you need to do, since this is broken and it's dropped all the way down into the door and you can't use the motor to raise the window, you basically just have to reach through those access holes and gently massage the door up so that the 2 white plastic tabs that are actually holding the door, and I'll show you those after I get the window up, are visible in these 2 access holes, because you're going to have to remove those from the window. And then you tape the window in place so that it won't fall back down. Videos I've seen kind of skip over this part on how you do it, but it's really just use your hands and gently manhandle it up, doing some twisting and pushing just to kind of work it up as you go. So hopefully this tape job will hold it up long enough anyway for me to get the 2 plastic pieces wedged out of the door, or the window. So that this white tab right there needs to get pushed backwards, and if you have small enough, well, I don't know, you can really do it on this side, but you could reach around to the back of the glass. Maybe, well, hold on a second. So on this side, this one's pushed up pretty far. You could raise the window, get this one out first, raise the window up, and then probably have room to sneak your hand behind on the other side, and maybe pull on that tab instead of pushing on it with a screwdriver, which I'll show you in a second. One other thing that I discovered as I was lifting the window up, look, here's that cable, and I don't know if that's going to cause us a problem as we try to remove the regulator. Thinking it probably will, and maybe I'll end up cutting the wire there and fishing it out from the bottom. The theme for this project is that access and visibility isn't the best, so I'm trying to get the best camera views as I can. But for this front of the vehicle side, with the window raised up like it is, you can try pulling back on the white tab with your hand from the back side. There's also a slot in that white post that sticks through that you can use, designed for you to put a screwdriver into and help push that backwards. But either way, you want to be able to gently get that pushed out so that the window is free from it, and the white plastic part may actually drop down to the bottom of the door since there's nothing really holding it in place. Be real careful though, of course, not to break the glass. With the front one disconnected, I think I'm just going to take my own advice and retape the window to put this one on the rear of the door up higher in that hole, so that maybe I can reach my hand out from behind and help pull that out. And I'm going to go ahead and cut that cable that's snagged over top of the window, because the next step is to raise the window to the top and just hold it up there, and just don't need to mess with the cable. So we'll cut that and then move the window to the top and tape it in place again. All right, we have the window taped up, it's all the way up, and now we need to get the regulator off from the other side of this door panel. And the regulator itself is held in place by 4 Torx tip screws, and then also the motor. So you remove the motor, remove these screws, and then the regulator is free to be replaced. Problem is it's on the back side. So there's 2 ways to try going about this. Most of the videos will show fully removing this trim piece, disconnecting a couple of lock rod connectors that are back behind this hole, and undoing all the wiring harness. And that's probably the official way to do it. Others suggest that you can basically remove all or most of the bolts holding the trim panel to the door, and you can pull the trim panel away far enough so that you can obviously remove the screws and then slide the regulator out from the backside, slide the new regulator in, all without having to undo it. And the reason for that, everybody says that these lock rods that you can see, the purple right there, and then there's another one there, that white one down there, I think you have to undo those. This is a tight space, and if those break, those plastic pieces break, it is a whole new challenge to replace those. But those lock those rods in place, and that's what opens your door and unlocks your door with the key, that sort of thing. So you don't want to break those plastic clips. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to try to do it without pulling the whole panel off. We'll see if we can accomplish that, and if not, we'll do it the longer route. The first thing we're going to do is disconnect the electrical connector on the motor, remove the 3 T30 Torx tip fasteners from the motor, pull the motor out of the door. Depending on how it broke on the other side, it might allow the motor to come out easily, and you might have to pry a bit on it to get it free if all the wiring on the inside has come unwound. With the motor removed, I'll grab my 10mm socket and remove the 11 bolts holding the door panel into the door itself. Kind of in uncharted or on YouTube documented territory here on how this is going to come out with all the wiring and everything still attached. So I left 1 bolt in, and I'm just going to try to work it out and kind of see what happens. And there's 1 cable that runs up to the rearview mirror. It's got the black connector. I'm going to go ahead and disconnect that from the control module. That way it doesn't prevent the inner door panel from maybe coming out as far as it could. So this door panel is actually sealed pretty good up against the door, so you kind of have to work around the perimeter of it to get it to come loose. Just go slow, use your fingers, it'll be fine. All right, I'm going to remove this last bolt and then tip this panel back and see what happens. What kind of access we get, if anything. Okay, it's not really letting me pull it back very far, and it looks like the main reason is the regulator is up inside the door. So I think we're going to have to maybe jimmy it down a little bit. Okay, so it looks like I really can't get much motion out of it because it's still connected on the side of the door. So I'll remove the 3 Torx tip fasteners from the side of the door and see if that helps anything. So what I'm going to try to do to get some more slack on this harness is remove the harness trim Christmas tree here right above the speaker hole, and then disconnect the connectors from this control module. Using a small blade screwdriver for these connectors. So I think what they're suggesting, now that I've freed this up enough by disconnecting a couple of connections and disconnecting the latch from the side of the door and pulled it away, is that you can pull the bottom out far enough to be able to fish the regulator up into the space. So not from the top, but from the bottom. And then looking down, so this is the back of the regulator, and you can see, so when you get the new part, this will make sense. We'll go look at it in a second, but this is kind of like the back side of where the motor goes. And so you would need to position the tracks over the holes where the screws go, position this part that goes behind the motor into its position. And then, I know this is a weird angle, but there's actually a cable that has a, you can see it, it snaps right down here in the middle. Kind of, I can't get a hand in there to show you, but towards the middle, you just need to be able to press that into place. And it seems pretty doable. So let's give it a try. So there's 4 T30 Torx tips holding the regulator guides in place, 2 on each side. And then on the back side, there are also some alignment pins. So when you take the screws out, it shouldn't drop. You're actually going to have to kind of push it away from the plastic a little bit and then be able to bring it out from the bottom. I do have that cut cable, so I'll be watching that and be able to get both pieces of that cable out from behind the window as well. All right, the old one is out, and this is the new one, the Dorman part. I'll leave a link in the video description. Looks like the holes in the metal brackets are all the same. The Dorman motor is not attached to the metal bracket where it is on the factory one, but also looks like the way that the springs attached to the motor assembly there are maybe a little bit more robust on the Dorman one, hopefully. Looking more closely at the wire spool here and the one that broke, looks like it started to come out a little bit. I don't know if that was after I cut the cable or when that happened, but anyway, this is what they look like, the old and the new. So now I'm going to try sliding the new one up from the bottom, try to get all the holes and the guide pins aligned, and then reach in. So you can see that this harness, this cable, goes what'll be underneath where the motor is, and like I said before, it'll snap or slide into one of the little holders in the back side of the plastic. It's not really easy to show it to you, but you'll be able to see it when you're working on it. All right, there definitely is a sequence that you want to do this in to save yourself some struggle. I struggled with this maybe 15 minutes. So once you get everything up behind the door, so this is towards the front of the van, first put the regulator into where the motor goes. Then there's actually, let's see if I can see it. So you can see right here, this is the back side of the regulator, and it's got a little post on it, and there's a hole in the metal track. And that hole is going to line up with that post. And then there are some guide pins at the top and the bottom that also have to fit into, well, it's pins on the plastic and holes on the track. So do the regulator first, get the hole for the regulator and the track, line those up, and then your top and bottom holes you'll have to wiggle them around a little bit, but it came together pretty quickly after I did it in that order. Anything else, just the bottom one I couldn't get. Also, don't start either one of the bolts until you get both of all the pins engaged and the bolt holes all lined up, because it'll get it cockeyed and then it's not going to work either. I'm not going to be able to show you actually connecting it, but this is that cable I was talking about, and you can see it's right up against where that little snap is going to hold it in place. So I just reach down with my hand and put it into that guide, and then we'll go over to the other side and
hopefully that'll come together pretty easily.
And the track on the back of the door towards the rear of the door was pretty easy to get installed. Kind of just went together. It's not a problem. So do the front side first, I would say, then do the rear. It actually was a lot simpler than I thought it would be. We still need to put the door panel back into the door. I did look inside and make sure that the 2 plastic clips for the rods for the locking mechanisms, that's all still in place. So we'll put the door panel back on and get some screws installed there. I should also mention that the tracks are greased, and so you're going to get grease on your hands. I'm not wearing gloves. If you want to wear gloves, that'll help keep the track grease off your hands. One last inspection of those 2 rods. Both the clips are still in place. Everything's good there. So got all the bolts tightened up, not superhuman torques, just tight. And next we're going to install the motor and get that reconnected. I know the motor on the old regulator was fine, worked just fine. I could reinstall it because obviously it'll fit, but again, I'm not sure if the gearing is a little bit different with the Dorman. Also, and that's the splines to interface with the regulator on the motor, and then also just the internal gearing. So just to make sure that all the parts will work together, even though reusing the original motor would have saved me $20, I think. I'm just going to go ahead and I bought the assembly with the Dorman motor as well, and I'm going to go ahead and install that motor. A couple of things to note with installing the motor as well. You're probably going to have to twist it a little bit as you insert it. Hold the regulator from the back to get the splines to line up. The posts from the regulator will be sticking out, and they will slide into essentially bigger bores on the motor, so it'll all slide together once you get those splines lined up. So make sure you get that lined up and feel it really come together before you try inserting the screws. And then the motor comes with screws from Dorman as well. I didn't attempt to use the factory screws because they were a little bit longer than the Dorman screws, so just using all the Dorman parts. All right, the motor's installed. I'm going to connect the electrical connector for the motor, and then all the other electrical connectors are connected. I'm going to take the controller for the window, plug it in, turn the van on, not running, but just turn it on, and try to make the regulator go down just a little bit, just to make sure that the motor works and that everything's installed correctly before I go and try to get the window glass into the regulator. All right, so now the moment of please don't break the glass, please don't break the glass, please don't break the glass. I'm going to lower the glass down into the regulator. It attaches the same way it detached, but those plastic parts are going to be stiffer than what was in the old one, just because this is all brand new. In some videos I've seen, people have had to give it a pretty sharp impulse to get it to catch. I'm hoping more for finesse, because I really don't want to break this glass and create a whole new set of problems.
So looking at the front one, glass is not broken, so that's good. And you can see the post there is fully engaged. So now I'll raise the window back up a little bit and go work on that rear one.
Success. And so if you need it, the trick I used was kind of rotate the bottom of the plastic up and pull down on the window. It just need a little bit of rotation in there to get it to pop in place. So now let's give the whole thing a test to make sure it works. All right, so the window works. I did not have to pull the panel off all the way, and actually it was fairly easy to do it up from the bottom. So that would be my recommendation. I would give it 2 thumbs up. I'm going to go ahead and put the rest of the door back together. It's pretty much just putting together what you took apart, the same way you took it apart. Start with hanging the door on the windowsill first, and then be careful, just gentle, putting the snaps back in and a couple of screws, and you should be good to go. Hopefully this video has been helpful. Maybe you get some questions answered, you find a couple new tips or tricks. If you like the video, if nothing else, please give it a thumbs up. It helps support the channel. Subscribe. There's lots of good video content always on the way. And if you feel like it's financially supporting, you can hit super thanks or buymeacoffee.com. All that information, parts, etc. in the video description. And until the next video, you guys take care and have a good one.